This is audience participation time. Raise your hand if you ever got screwed on an appraisal. Don't be bashful. For those of you that aren't raising your hand, welcome to real estate. You must have just got in the game. That's okay. So, yeah, this is the world. This is my message tonight. It's the world according to the appraisers. And see, they're like a totally different breed. I don't even know if they're human. I just know one thing for sure is they think a lot differently than we do. We're going to get into that, okay? So one thing I've learned about appraisers is a lot of them don't know the area. You know, they come down from, I don't know, somewhere near Wisconsin, and they're coming to Chatham or to Washington Heights, and so, you know, when I interview one thing I do is I'll interview the appraiser, and I'll say, hey, you know, have you ever worked in this subdivision? And they tell me yes. I said, can you tell me what the area is called? And then if I'm in a really smart ass mood, and I think you can figure out that that's 100% of the time, I'm going to ask them, can you spell Chatham for me? Biatch. So anyways, no, I don't really do that, but it's what I want to do, right? The problem with this industry right now, and we're going to get into solutions. I'm going to rock your world tonight. You're going to end up walking out here with a different pair of glasses on tonight. You're going to see and hear things that you never heard of before. You're going to be enlightened. Okay. Appraisers, a lot of them don't know the area. They're clueless, okay? A lot of them aren't interested. Their fees are negotiated down. There's some banks that will give them full vote, $450 for a single family. There's other ones that will give them half of that. So they're not interested in making your day. They're interested in putting this thing together as quickly as they possible so they can get their little paycheck, and hey, I can understand. So the industry also hurts them. Another problem in this industry is a lot of appraisers are good guys, and they want to do the right thing, but it's the bank that doesn't want to do the right thing. It's the underwriters that will screw you. It is the underwriters that will say, hey, you know what? This is a low to moderate area, and brothers and sisters, we're about to screw you because we're going to lower the values to $20,000. And they think that they're reincarnated Einsteins. They think, hey, you know what? I'll lower the value 20. So now a house in South Shore that was worth $200,000, they come in and they praise the house rate $180,000. Guess what? They eradicated. This is what really aggravates me. They took $20,000 of wealth from everybody else around them, because next go around, what are the cops going to say? They're worth $180,000. So that's why I have a bug up my ass with a lot of these banks out there, these bigger box banks, and you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to go through some names, but those are the ones that I stay away from. Okay, so fun fact number one. Okay, we're trying to get our price. So interesting things that appraisers look for. Okay, so appraisers look for style of home, right? So let's say you've got a single family house and it's one story, and you're putting comps together for this appraiser, and you're giving them 2-story homes. That's not going to work. And so you have to do your homework. You want to make sure that you put the same style of house together that I'm going to cover some stuff that's very obvious, and I get into some really cool stuff. So keep your panties on, okay? Just relax. Exterior. Except for the north side, the south side, it's a big difference. So if you're using brick comps to support a frame house, they're gonna knock you down on the south side 10 to 15,000. North side, you can have a commercial building, and they'll take it and count it as the same. I mean, I've never seen The north side's cool, man. They don't, they just kind of come as you are. So, the style of house is important, the exterior is important, and the time frame is important also. So when you're putting your comps together, guys, you want to make sure that you try to find comps within 6 months. And when I'm pricing a house for an investor, I don't even look at 6 months. I want to look at what is been sold in the last month and what is deal pending right now, because there's shifts going on in markets all the time. There's shifts going on in a lot of markets on the north side too. When areas are allowed to go unchecked and the market's going up 12 to 18% a year, there's going to be an adjustment in those areas eventually. Lots of parts of the north side are seeing that right now. And so what you have to do is you have to see, look, when you're getting ready to run comps, excuse me, you want to see what's active as well too. Because if you're selling a house for $200,000 and a year ago, 6 months ago, that's what they were selling for, and there's houses that are currently priced at $180,000 or listed $180,000, those are your comps. And so you have to be careful, and you have to buy a little more conservatively in those areas. Likewise, if you see comps closing in the last month and that are listed much higher, that's the trend going on then too. So it works both ways. But what most people do is the opposite. They don't always, I don't have a problem with somebody trending up. I always have a problem when the trend goes down. People are looking to, to hit a home run. They're, on the north side, people are buying at low margins, expecting to get that 12 to 18%. And when it hits everything has a ceiling. When it hits the ceiling, that's when people start losing their butts. So this is one of the really good fun facts. Make sure that you work with someone that knows what they're doing, and make sure that they're not looking 12 months from now, 6 months from now. You want to look as close as possible. Now, if the comps aren't there, the most recent comps, then you do have to go back. And by the time you buy the house, rehab it, resell it, that may be about a 6-month process. So you have to take that in consideration when you're figuring out your values, when you're figuring out your timelines, when an appraiser is looking. Appraisers, they really like to stay within the 6-month rule. It's more of a suggestion. If not, they go back a year. If not, they will go back even further. If they can't find the similar style of house and they have to go past a year, they will. I've seen them go as far back as 15, 16 months to find a style of home. The problem is when something like that happens, you can run into a situation where the values were a lot different, significantly lower back then than they are today. So those are things when you're looking to invest as an investor, you have to pay attention to this stuff. You want to have your realtor show you everything from a year back, and you want to pay attention to those dates. You're not just paying attention to the prices. Everybody looks for the higher prices and they get all excited and they think, oh, okay, wow, here we go. Shows this property is worth $250,000. Pay extreme attention to the dates of the properties that have closed. Location. Now here's a BS. Frank Montro's fun facts that are BS. I've heard appraisers say, oh, there's this 1 mile rule. No, it's a recommendation. So some appraisers say I'm going to stick within the 1 mile rule. And I argue with some appraisals. I had some appraisals that were some comps that were like 1.25 miles away, and they wouldn't take them. So we had to argue and pull out the Fannie and Freddie directives till we got this cleared. It's only a recommendation, guys. Is this going on tape? Yeah, so these are things that you guys should...
You're on Facebook Live.
Okay, hi Facebook Live. Oh boy, I better tone down the rhetoric. Yeah, this is important stuff because this could dramatically affect your value. A lot of times, you know, hey, in the city of Chicago, mile, come on, man, give me a freaking break. A lot of these areas are much bigger than a mile radius, and they're very similar construction, similar builders. So to restrict that as a general rule doesn't really work all the time. And so as long as you know that, you can effectively argue that in a rebuttal. We'll talk about a rebuttal in a little while as well too. And by the way, I'm not going to keep you here all night. I'm going to just hit you guys with some very, very important facts that can help you save a lot of money on your appraisals, on your prep work for your appraisals, and on the rebuttals, because we're going to get into rebuttaling an appraisal as well too, because that's extremely important. I've had appraisals. I've turned appraisals around $40,000. So I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I do it every week. I mean, I love challenging appraisals and appraisers. I know how to do it. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and we'll get into that. You know, one of my favorite subjects is square footage. The city of Chicago. I don't know if half the people in there are on drugs or what, but you know, when you look at identical properties and you've got one at 1,500 square feet and the one next door at 2,500 square feet, and I'm sitting there scratching my head and I'm like, this is total BS. Well, here's one of the problems. Some real estate agents out there, none in this room, I'm sure, what they do is, now there's a trick to the trade, okay? So what they do is they go, okay, it's a 1,500 square foot home, but you know what? I'm gonna put estimated 2,500 square feet home. Now what that does, boys and girls, is when somebody searches for a property and their parameters are, I need at least 2,000 square feet. Now that 1,500 square foot house, now it gets eyes on it, where it wouldn't have before. So it's, you know, it's a smart, but it's really an unethical thing to do because you're misrepresenting the property and you can get sued over it. However, nobody really sues anybody over that, so agents continue to get away with it. And here's the bad part. Here's the gift that you're leaving for the buyer. So the buyer buys this house thinking it's 2,500 square feet. Guess who else thinks it's 2,500 square feet? The tax man, the tax assessor. So next assessment time, that guy is gonna screw that buyer and he's gonna be paying for 2,500 square feet instead of 1,500 square feet. Now, if the unethical, my message is now out, Facebook Live, to you unethical agents. Can you please, at the end of your deal, switch it back to the truth and put it back to 1,500 square feet, because all that information gets sucked into the tax assessors. So you know what I'm talking about. So during a regular deal, if you check the tax assessor, it'll say 1,500 square feet, then it'll say comma per MLS 2,500 square feet or whatever number, fantasy number the realtor made up. So it's already ported into the system. Now it's just waiting for the deal to close, and then shortly after the deal closes, that number gets ported in and that 1,500 goes bye-bye. So now all of a sudden, you have a number that doesn't represent the property. More importantly, if you guys are trying to sell another property down the street, you don't know that those numbers have been compromised, right? So then you look at, you're getting your comps together, and you're like, wait a minute, that can't be 2,500 square feet. So, what do you do, right? Now, there's two things you can do. Number one is I will contact the realtor that closed that deal, and I'll ask him or her, can you do me a favor, and can you get the copy of the survey for me? And I'd probably have a 50% chance, 50% rate, and I explained to him, look, we're doing the same thing here. We're trying to protect values. I said, what's going to happen is that this property is going to be hit significantly because of the information that's on this this tax record. So a lot of times I can get that and I can overcome that. Or rule number 2, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is, and I just found this out, Google Earth. I talked to an appraiser today, and I had him come in and speak to my team. He downloads Google Earth, and I'm going to get the details on that, and I'm going to send it to you so you can send it out to everybody here.
Awesome.
So what happens is you download Google Earth, okay, and then that shows an aerial view, and it also has a measuring device on it. So now you can go dispute that property that has false information, and now you can because the whole thing is you got to cover the appraiser. You can't blame the appraiser, right? The appraiser says, Frank, the tax records say 2,500. What do you want me to do? You know, you want to order your own survey? Well, of course I'm not going to order my own survey, and then what? So so what do you do? What do? You know, I've had about a 50% success rate getting surveys, but now I got this other weapon, and this thing is going to be a game changer. Because if you're tired of losing $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, these are things that make a difference, and these are things that will protect your values. And I'll explain how to approach an appraisal very shortly once I make my way through this fun stuff. Another thing that I've learned, and like I said, appraisers are weird people. If you're here, you know, get over it. I'd like to say I'm sorry, but I can't, because I can't figure out how you guys think. So what I find is this. So this is important information. Okay, so when let's say you got 2 different properties. You got your property and you got the comp, and the comp is 500 square feet. So you know you're looking at the top of you know when you take your square footage and divide it into price, you're like, okay, so my square footage is about 111 square feet, and mine, let's say mine is 500 square feet, so I should be able to get at least 5,500 extra. It comes back, and it's half of that, or it's a third of that, and I'm like, wait a minute, are you using that modern math bullshit, or what's going on here? What happens is the average, so the average out there for most areas is roughly around $40 to $50, or roughly another way that some of these appraisers look at it is they'll take that top figure, or that figure where you take your dollar amount that you're selling it for and divide it by your square footage, and let's say it's 120. They're going to take a third. Some appraisers will just say, hey, I'm just taking a third of whatever that dollar amount is. So that makes no sense to me. It probably makes no sense to you as well, too, unless you're an appraiser. So that's the reason. Why is that important to you? Because when you're preparing your comps, you have to, when I do my comps, I write that stuff out. And so one of my solutions, I'm kind of jumping the gun here. So one of the things that I do is when we have an appraiser, I'm going to call that appraiser. I'm going to walk, and I'm going to walk them through all, if I have my 3 comps, and I see where the disparities are. Maybe there's square footage issues, maybe there's bedroom issues, maybe there's bathroom issues. I'm going to ask him or her, how much do you get for half bath? How much do you get for full bath? That's the key. So that's why, I was joking, but I wasn't when I said, hey, anybody that doesn't want to work hard, leave. Because you're not going to, if you don't bust your butt here, you're not going to be able to take advantage of this. See, you can, let's say you work hard and you put this beautiful rehab together, and you come and you sit down and you sign a contract, and then the next thing you know, you get appraisal that's $10,000, $15,000 less. And you could have, and I'm telling you tonight, you can prevent that. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, because I have these investors that come to me, And I show them a house, and they're like, "Oh, Frank, this is, a piece of garbage." And then the second they close, they're like, "Oh my God, oh my God, did you see that house?" I'm like, "That same one that we closed on yesterday." "Yeah, I did." So there's some people that will overinflate their prices, but beyond that, if you set your pricing correct, you still set yourself up to fail if you don't do your homework. I'm telling you guys, the most important thing you can do is start working with people that do their homework. Start working with people that put a package together with the appraisers. I have no problem calling an appraiser and asking him, hey, what do you got? What do you normally do when you have a 3-bedroom house and a 4-bedroom house? What do you subtract, add? And they'll give me what they normally do. So on that note, I'm going to tell you what I see when I'm out there. A half bath, I see appraisers on the average on the south side give about $2,500 for a difference in a half bath. Sometimes it goes as high as $5,000. Full bath, just double those numbers. A fireplace, it's usually around $3,000 to $5,000. That's what you can kind of expect. So when you're out, here's why this stuff's important. When you're out and you're looking to buy a house, you just don't look at what a house. The biggest mistake is that investors look at what houses have sold for. That's a little piece of the equation, class. You got to look at everything else. You got to say, hey man, give me the full comp, and then you got to look and see how many bedrooms there are. What's the square footage? Does this house have an extra bathroom? Some houses have 2 fireplaces. Dude, you're going to lose. That's going to cost you 10 grand, baby, if the comp's got 2 fireplaces. Okay, so this is the big leagues, pal. If you just want to roll the dice and run your comps and see what happens, hey, fine, go do that, man. Take off, because I'm wasting your time here. But if you really want to grow, you really want to challenge yourself, you really want to be great, and you really care about yourself and your pocketbook and your family, man, well, pay attention, guys, and start utilizing this. Go the extra. It doesn't really take that much work. Conversation with an appraiser. You base it real friendly. You start off by saying, hey, I'm going to provide you all this information. I'll get into that in a second, what I provide. And then, you get them liking you, digging you. And then, oh, by the way, you can charge for a bedroom, above ground, below ground. Those are usually around $2,000 to $5,000. Most guys will go to $2,000 to $3,000 range. I've seen them go as high as $5,000. A patio on the south side, $4,000. Finished basement, that'll go anywhere around $10,000 to $15,000. That's numbers that are pretty solid. Some other interesting things here. So you're out there and you get your appraisal back and you see it ding down $5,000, and it's because the appraiser subtracted out seller's concessions. Closing cost credit. Here's the cool thing, guys. I've been able to get rid of those for years. There's a Fannie Mae directive, and I can send this to Josh or whoever. It's the Fannie Directive 30103. I always use that to rebut now what I do is I ask them ahead of time. Hey, do you subtract out? Because I never used to ask for it, but now I do. Do you subtract out seller's concessions? And I got a guy today that I talked to. He goes, absolutely. I said, what about because the Fannie directive says if they were common for the area, that he does not have to subtract them out. So I supplied this statement I got. I just forwarded it to the guy. So see, everything is you've got to cover his ass. If going back to the square footage, if it says 2,500, he's going to report 2,500 because otherwise he can lose his job. So if I supply something, an aerial view from Google showing that it's really 1,500, then he's like, here you go. Here you go, Mr. Bank. This is why I said it's 1,500. Because you better believe they get reviewed all the time. So they can't just say, well, the realtor told me it was the same house. And they're like, you're done. So our job as realtors and as investors are to protect the appraiser. Because otherwise, if we don't approach it from that, I've seen other agents just come out swinging and saying, I'm going to file a lawsuit against you and report you. Yeah, that really goes a long ways, That really gets you to, that didn't get you first base, man. That didn't even get you a bowl of soup. You just create an enemy. And so, I'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to talk about seller concessions. And another fun fact, boys and girls, is that there is a FHA 5% rule. Okay, so let's say your first appraisal comes in at $200,000. Your second appraisal comes in 5% less. Guess what? You can go with the first appraisal because the FHA has a rule saying that you can do that. Now there's some catches to it. It has to be a X amount of improvement. So a typical rehab, which is what we're talking about, is going to fall right in line with that. And that's FHA Reg 24 CFR 203.37 for you geeks, in case you want those numbers. I will supply that. But I tell you what, wouldn't it be nice to be able to save 5% if you knew these rules? Guess who knows these rules? The kid. Guess who now knows these rules? You guys. So now you guys should take this information and become better real estate agents and become better investors and make more money. Realtors, if you do this and you save your client 5%, you save them $40,000, you save them $20,000, they're not going to forget that. And investors, if you make some small changes and save yourself $20,000 to $40,000, doesn't it make sense? Of course it does. Okay, solution time, class. All right, so what I always do is I start off by asking an appraiser, if, before he gets out, hey, have you been to this area? And do you know about the area? How many times have you been to the area? And if he hasn't been to the area, I'm like, okay, thanks, I'll get back to you. I'll call the mortgage company. I'll say you need to spend a dial, because every mortgage company has an AMC, appraisal management company. Some of them, my favorite ones, my loan companies of the year have their own AMC, so they handpick appraisals that know what the hell they're doing. They still have to spin the dial. They can't pick the same guy every time. But they have excellent appraisals, just like these guys back there that are hiding behind you, Barnett Capital. They have phenomenal appraisals, and they are an excellent resource for you. So if you haven't talked to Barnett Capital, one thing you'll find from me is I don't bullshit. Okay, if I don't like you, I'm going to tell you straight to your face. I do love Barnett. They're doing a phenomenal job, and they're a resource and a lender for many of my clients. That's been good. I quiz the appraiser on variances before before the appraiser goes out. I want to get my comps together, find out where the variance is between the property we're trying to get sold and the comps. So you want to make sure you do that. If we meet the appraisal, we may bring the documents to him or her, or else we will email the following items. This is bare minimum stuff, gang. Take your survey from when you close the deal and shoot him a copy. Make his job so easy that he's going to like you, and that if there's a $500 variance, he can overlook that. Survey is important. Good and bad comps are important. Don't just offer good comps. Hey, every area has bad comps, and they're there for a reason. So the bad comps, we strike through if we're handing them directly to them with a yellow marker. If we're emailing them, we put a big X through that. And we follow up with a reason. You know, a lot of times I will, if I see something that's extraordinarily low, I may call the agent up and say, hey buddy, what happened? Why did they sell this thing for $25,000 less? Well, I got a north side investor, he's never bought on south side, and he got scared, he just wanted, you know, lost his mind, and care, just want to get out, or just want to get out of the business. So I'm like, cool. So I'm gonna write that and supply that to the appraiser, because we're all doing this together. We're protecting our income. You know, so I'm not calling out the agent. I'm the agent that's giving me that information. We're partners. We're friends. We're doing this together. Well, I need your help. So I'm gonna document this and send this along. So this is gonna protect both of our butts. In the future, when we sell properties, we wanna make sure we sell them for as much money as possible so that we get a higher commission, right, Mr. Realtor? So, I mean, that's how I approach it. Survey, good and bad comps. And then on the good comps, make your adjustments. I have that all ready for him. It's point and shoot with this guy. Contract, here's another thing. This is, man, I just want to, somebody give me something to throw. So we'll send the appraiser the contract. Say it's for $180,000. Let's say we started at $160,000. So Mr. Genius Appraiser's got the $160,000 contract, right? So guess what price it comes back at? $160,000. So if we go through some serious negotiations, we highlight that 180, or if it's being emailed, we circle it and we say we started at a lower value, but this is the agreed upon value. I can't tell you how many times in the past that the appraiser, they're in a rush, man. They don't care. Some of these guys are making $200. You think they really want to spend the time and go through the paperwork? They're grabbing whatever's in front of them. $160,000. And then I go back and tell him, he goes, too bad. That's my value. I'm just thinking, my God, if I change this, I'm going to look like an idiot. Okay, I'll just tell them. I'll just tell the realtor they can't do anything. I'll just tell them that's what the market is bearing right now. Yeah, okay. So now you're screwed. So what you're doing is you're eliminating everything possible to go wrong. It's not to say that, hey, I've done all this stuff and I still gotten screwed. And then we'll get to plan B, because this is not over once we get a bad appraisal. Okay. We also, you guys, you want to hand them an MLS printout, and you also want to include on that we're going to be supplying the central air and the appliances, because otherwise, 50% of the time they'll look at it and they'll see if there's no appliances, there's no central air, and you can install it right before closing, right? But being the time-sensitive person that these appraisers are, they don't care. They're just going to write, and then you got to. And I've had to go back and rebuttal that, and they said, "Too bad, we're not changing that. We already made our adjustments. We don't care if you're putting central air, and we're not giving you credit for it." Yeah, that's how they play out there. It's a tough world. That's why you have to protect yourself and/or your client as well. So, do these things. They're small. I think they're a little extra effort. Maybe take an extra half hour of your time. Well worth it. Okay. Also, it doesn't hurt, especially if you got good comps, you're all set. If you don't have good comps, you bring out the A team. You want to add in the list of improvements and the cost of the improvements. So you want to throw that in his face and let the appraiser know you spend a lot of money on this house, and that there's a reason why he needs to justify this house at this price point. Okay, what happens when you get a low appraisal? We're winding things down. I know this is very geeky material and stuff, but it's going to make you a lot of money, so you should be excited, right? Okay, a low appraisal comes in. First thing I do is rebuttal. So I look at what he's done. I make his or her corrections, and I start off. I always start off with, they love this language. It's music to their ears. We're asking for a reconsideration of value. It's not like, what is your license number? I'm turning, I've seen some things. I'm like, geez, dude, calm down. They're like, I've had other agents say, hey, can you look this over? I'm like, are you trying to, ban yourself from the industry? So their speak is a reconsideration of value, and then you lay it out. You lay the seller concessions. You didn't include the central area, even though I told you in the information. It's mind-boggling. But there's times when I have to go do a reconsideration of value with appraisers, and I'm pretty effective at getting them. But there's times I don't. So what do? You say, because the loan officers are like, I got you for 6 months, biatch. And I'm like, okay, guess what? I'm gonna remember you, bitch. And I said, I'm taking my deal over conventionally. And you can have it conventionally, or I'm gonna take it to one of my boys. And it's gonna be a wrap. And I've done that a bazillion times. CIBC has a great portfolio product, and it's a no PMI product, 640, and they also give a grant of $2,500 to sweeten the pie. That's conventional, and they don't consider the FHA appraisal. So now with this, the Fannie program's at 3%, and pretty much everybody has that, 3%, 620, 640. It depends, what bank you go to, what overlays they have. So there are plenty of escape routes to get out of a low appraisal. So in the past, we didn't have these escape routes. We were stuck. We would have to wait for 6 months for it to expire and reboot, or else we had to suck it up and take the low appraisal. But I have a tremendous amount of success with this formula. Know your AMC. When you choose a mortgage company, when you decide to get in bed with a mortgage company, one of the things I ask them is, who's your AMC? Oh, well, we have our own AMC. I'm like, I love you. And how many people are in your AMC? We got 12 people. We rotate them. We know them all. And by the way, Frank, if you know of anybody that's a good appraiser, we'll be glad to take them on. I do happen to keep score of good appraisals and bad appraisals because I'm that kind of a guy. So I will pass along. And I've gotten a lot of good appraisals business that deserve it, that are fair, and they go the extra. I'm not saying they cheat and they, the one thing I will not deal with is someone that's unethical either way. That stuff will catch up to you. I've seen so many people go to jail and all that kind of fun stuff. What I'm talking about is an appraiser that does his homework, that has a passion for the business, that wants to make sure the values are right. Those are the people that are my friends. The people that are my friends are the lazy bastards that drive wealth down in areas, especially the South Side. I have zero tolerance for that. I almost got sued by one big bank. It's got 5 letters. I can't say the name. So I got a letter from their legal department, and so I do know some people in the network news. I do know an African-American network host, and I brought her into the game, and I said, she wants to cover this. And lo and behold, magically, a week later, I got a registered letter saying they're dropping the lawsuit. Wow. Boy, was I lucky, right? So, I love what I do. If you love what you do, you will take this information and you will use it. It's beast mode time, y'all. It's next level shit. Listen to me. You can coast through your life and you can get by. In case you haven't figured it out, it's a lot harder to get deals now. The MLS is not the spot anymore. So how much more important is this information to you to capture as much money as possible per transaction? Because if you have the luxury, if you're independently wealthy and you don't care about what's going on, you can leave right now too. I'm not going to hold it against you. But if you really care about what you're doing, take this information, man. This is stuff that I've worked on that I know that works. This is real-time stuff that will save you a lot of money. I appreciate everybody here that's here tonight. And if you have any questions about appraisals, I just wanted to do something different tonight and kind of go off the grid. Normally I talk about just investing in general, but I see a big problem out there with a lot of people getting burned, and it affects my business too. Because if you are getting bad appraisals, it shrinks the wealth in those areas. And that's what these banks, so these banks think, hey man, I'm really cool, baby, because I'm gonna lower this thing 20 grand. Well, hey dummy, all these other loans you got up in the area for 200,000, now you just lost. So you may have 4 other loans out there for $200,000. 4 times 20 is 80,000. You just lost 80,000 to save 20. Maybe save 20 grand because you think it. In case that deal goes in foreclosure, you think it's a high risk area. That's how foolish these banks are. They're not business people. So we need. Hey guys, if this is your business, act and think big. Don't think small. Don't play small. Do the extra work. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Open this up for a couple questions from the audience. One thing, Frank, I think you kind of talked about people that lie about their square footage in the MLS. I see this a lot. One thing I do to see if something's realistic on their square footage is, okay, it's 2,500 square feet, but they've got a 10 by 10 master bedroom. Something doesn't add up. So use that also when you're looking at a lot of these listings with fake, where they just put a number that who knows where they got it from. But anybody have questions? I mean, the information Frank just gave you could save you $5, $10, $20, $30,000. So again, give him a round of applause again for sharing that. Does anybody have questions specifically about appraisals or investing? We're going to open this up. I want to get us out of here by, it's 7:40 right now. I want to get us out of here by 8. So we're going to open this up for some questions. Raise your hand and we'll...
Frank, before you get the reconsideration of the appraisal, when the guy gets there with you talk to him before he put it out there?
I'm not sure.
What I'm saying that, say let's say
The appraisal came in low.
It came in low. So how would you know it came in low?
Well, the mortgage company will contact you and say, we got a low appraisal in, it's whatever, 20,000 low. So then what I do is I'll say, okay, fine. We're going to challenge that. So I need to see I need to get the full appraisal. And and a lot of times it's the second appraisal that comes in low too. So when the second appraisal comes in low, I ask for both appraisals. And I want to see how can one be 20,000, 40,000 higher and the second one be that much lower? And so when I have that information, I can effectively challenge it. But when a loan officer, says, well, I can't give you that information, I'm like, well, then we got a dead deal. Oh, okay, well, I can give you the information. I'm like, okay, thanks. Questions, comments? Yes?
You said that loss is not the spot anymore? What's the problem?
There's just not as many deals anymore. So, I mean, you have to go all over. So, the MLS, it is a resource, but the amount of wholesale properties on the MLS just aren't there anymore. So I mean, a lot of people are using, you've had them here, a lot of people use Click Invest because a lot of the price points they're listed so high. A lot of people go to auctions. They partner up with Bird Dogs Wholesale. There's a lot of door knocking going on. We hit sheriff sales, auctions, you name it. I mean, I deal with guys that send yellow letters out, postcards out, and then I deal with some guys that spend some pretty big money on that monthly. So that's no joke. But yeah, the day of just relying strictly on the
the MLS right now are over with, because the deals the quantity of deals aren't there anymore. So that's why people have to spread out. So, one of the good things about Josh is that Josh, has a diversity of people here. There's wholesalers, there's real estate agents, there's attorneys, there's buyers, there's hard money lenders. By the way, this guy is my attorney right here. This is Gary Davidson from Castle Law. This is the guy that I use a lot and you guys found out why. One of the reasons you let them tell the stories about how when you hang out with creative people, with people that are passionate, they're going to figure out a way to think outside the box legally and get stuff done. The rules are, there's the simple way to do it, follow the yellow brick road, and then there's people out here that can figure out how to do things legally, get it done when things look like they're done. Like I explained tonight, hey, the appraiser, the loan officers don't care. They just want their paycheck. Hey, we're stuck for 6 months. No, we're not. We're not stuck for 6 months, because we're going to rebuttal it. And I've had tremendous success. In fact, one of the loan officers I use right there, Tim Padovic, for my retail stuff from Federal Savings. I mean, we've had some, every once in a while we'll have a deal, and Tim works with me, and understand, no system's perfect. At least Tim's, it's very rare when we get a low appraisal, and it's nice when you have a loan officer that cares and that's passionate about his business. So he's going to get involved and make sure it's done fairly. And I do want to say one thing. I had a loan officer once. The appraisal came in and it was a bad appraisal, and he didn't realize that I was copied on the appraisal. So he said some stuff that he shouldn't have said. So but hey, you know what? I'll never use that guy. Obviously, I use guys like these guys that are passionate. I think you can tell that I'm passionate about what I do, and I care about what I do. I'm giving you information. I'm giving you a lot of secrets tonight of what I do, to how I approach appraisals. I mean, you won't hear this anywhere else. This is real time. I've been in business for 34 years. I'm obsessive compulsive, type A, high D, whatever you want to call it, over the top. I want to do the best that I can. I tee it up every day. That's my attitude. Questions? Any more questions? Yes, Zach.
What time do you get up in the morning?
4:30. Sometimes.
Wow.
I mean, some days a little
If he
early.
gets a late start.
Yeah, that's a late. If I sleep in 4:30, what's up, buddy? Hey, man. Good.
I just want to make a comment on what you're saying, kind of piggybacking off the MLS.
Sure.
CoStar on the commercial side has just announced too, because they're going through a huge lawsuit as Monopoly with CompState and a couple others, in terms of they're changing the data to go ahead and customize it for themselves so they can identify if someone is copying their information and using it to be published. So the data that you get, you can't go ahead and take off of exactly the way it's formatted. You have to go ahead and investigate, make sure that the information is correct. Because CoStar is a good example in terms of they're putting information out there that's maybe 90% true, and they're going ahead and manipulating it to go ahead and go ahead and use it as an identifier that that's their information. And they come out in the lawsuit and mention it in the last month or so.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What the program is that you mentioned that there's a conventional route to go?
Well, I mean, a lot of banks have that now. Now, CIBC, which was used to be the private bank, that got bought out by a Canadian bank. Canadian, I don't know what's the name, Canadian International, whatever it is. CIBC, if you look up CIBC, they're downtown Chicago. They have a portfolio product. So it's a product that it's a lot easier to get qualified for, and they don't have quite as few overlays as some of these other banks do. So that's a good product. You can, I don't know who you normally use for your loan officers, but you can also ask them about their 3% program. I think pretty much everybody has 3% programs. Just different banks have different overlays. you know, in case you don't know what an overlay is, it's not what the banking industry requires, but it's what the particular bank might say, hey, you know what? We'll lend with 3% down, but we're gonna require some more things from the buyer, just to minimize our risk. So that's what overlays are. So each bank's gonna be a little bit different. Some will be extremely liberal, some will be extremely tight. So you have to jump through a lot of hoops. Other questions?
How long have you been with Keller Williams?
I've been with Keller, I've been in the business for 34 years. I've been with Keller 2.5 years.
Used to be on Western, Frank.
Oak Realty, yeah.
Yeah,
Back in the day,
Back in the
baby,
day.
yeah, back in the day. Is that right? Good catch, man, good catch. Anybody else have, if you think of anything else, feel free to reach out to me. Yes?
You mentioned about those appraisals that some of the values are like based on the 1,500 square feet, some of them like 25. Do you think that some realtors adding the finished basement as a like living space and it's like maybe 25?
Possibly. I don't, there, it certainly would be, yeah, it's, I've seen other ones that said, well, according to the developer, it's, X amount of, 4,200 square. I'm like, what the, that's more than a 2-flat. And then there's other times where I would say, yeah, they're including below grade as well too. So yeah, in some cases, yes, in some cases, only God knows. But, the bottom line is, that it's deceitful and it's wrong and it dramatically affects the values of others in the area. And that's the bad part. That's why it's important to get that Google Earth program and to download it and start using the measuring device on that so you can rebuttal the incorrect information. Others?
Real quick, I came along with
Yes.
someone to ask a question.
Sure.
Do you have a program whereas you work with investors, you do the entire deal where you provide
Right.
the contractors, you're just pretty much the middle person that we're working with?
Yeah.
You have something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm a plug and play guy.
Yeah.
So you show up, and if you don't have funds, I can introduce you to hard money lenders like Barnett Capital, or if you have funds to show up, and I do the rest. I kill it, I skin it, I do the whole thing, baby. I'm a hunter, man. I grind. I will find you properties. I've got a list of qualified contractors, and I've got an exit strategy that'll knock your socks off. Like I'm the only guy in the South Side that does drone videos. He actually does my drone videos for me. So Tim Padovic from Federal Savings. So I just surround myself with people that provide value, and for me, and I provide value back to them. And that seems to work pretty good for me over the years. I just kind of figured out after a while is I have to provide excessive value to people. And if I do that, I'm going to be okay. A lot of my clients will stick with me. The ones that don't, a lot of times they come back. They think the grass is greener on the other side, or they're unethical. Okay, go bye, get away from me. There's plenty of people out there, plenty of good people out there. It takes work to find them, but once you find them, they're like gold, and they're going to stick with the good ones. Will stick with you. If the good ones that understand excessive value, that principle, they will stay with you because they get it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Are you noticing like slowdown in your markets, like in the south side?
No.
Or it's like just typical winter?
So what has slowed down is the MLS. That's the only thing that's slowed down. I mean, I've got 3 deals today I'm negotiating. So here's okay. So let me add this in. So that's a great question, actually. So people ask me, "How's your winter going?" I said, "Depends on the weather." And so to be more specific,
Yeah.
is this: if it's like 40 degrees, 30 degrees, 20 degrees, 5 degrees, and it's like like the stock market, no problem. I'm going to have a killer winter. However, if it does this, nosedives and stays at around 5 degrees for 2-3 weeks, nobody goes outside. So guess what, boys and girls? Nobody buys houses during that time period. That's the time when, that's the key component that affects business more than any other component does during the winter. But, I mean, we're still, you know, I've got buyers that are credit repair and that, you know, like Tim and I are working on all the time. So we're still moving stuff. It just won't be at the high level that we're used to seeing. If we have a sustained temperature of at 0 or around 0, it will definitely stop people from going outside. Now, if you have a 30, 20 degrees and then it drops down for a couple days, it's still gonna be hotter and hot. If you're providing excessive value, people will come and do business with you. You know, if you don't, they won't. It's that simple. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Yes?
Yeah, Frank, so the deals are tighter on the MLS now, we all know that, harder to find, prices are going up for us to buy them. Are you seeing correspondingly the sales prices going up, matching that? Or are we getting pinched in the middle?
Yes to all of your,
Right.
yes, and yes. So, and that's why, like, a lot of guys are going to Click Invest because, and then there's another new program out there now that does the same thing too, that does it with off-market stuff and everything. So, yeah, so now it becomes a seller's market. So now with wholesale, so now they can drive it up, you know, and take the profit away from an investor, right? But these newbies that are being fed bad information are overpaying.
Right.
You know, and some of these wholesalers, I want to beat them out of them. You know, I call them up and said, bro, who can do this full gut rehab on a 2-story bungalow for $40,000? Show me that guy. You know, introduce me. I will marry him. I said, you know, if he does that for that kind of money. Of course, okay, it was this guy, you know, and I call him up. Yeah, that'll be $85,000. I'm like, thanks a lot. So, you know, you know, what's going to happen is, you know, it's a cycle right now where it's still a strong seller's market. So what's going to happen is there's still a lot of people overbidding for stuff. And that, you know, so there's going to be, and there is now a big wave of people that have to sell off. And, you know, there's a lot of people that are losing money. But unfortunately, you know, I've seen, so I've been in business for 30 years. I've seen the cycles, you know, unfortunately, we're kind of stuck in this cycle a lot longer than I thought we would be. So yeah, you just have to get very creative, and you have to try to minimize your playground and have, you know, and go do things that other people don't do to get fine properties. So you minimize your competition.
Yeah, be careful of people selling you deals that aren't deals too. I mean, all the time.
Oh, geez.
I'll get people that they'll run a deal by me, and they'll say, "Oh, look at this property I could sell for this amount of money," and I'll say, "Well, what school district is? Did you notice all the comps they're using are south or north of this house or west of this house?" That's because that's in a different school district. So, and a lot of Chicago is dictated by schools.
School districts have boundaries too. So there's, you know, we looked at a house in Beverly, the Sutherland School District, and so I looked at the map. The property was across the street. So across, you know, on that side of the street was Sutherland. The house was on the opposite side. So, and they're promoting it as Sutherland School Districts. So they're falsely promoting, but that's a problem with a lot of wholesalers. They just don't know. And I hope to God they're not really deceived. But you know, a lot of people are buying off of bad information, so that drives the prices up. They're going to pay more because they're being misled. Yes, sir.
Looking like 2-3 years in the future, what's the next hot area do you see like on the south side?
Well, I mean, Woodlawn is taken off. East Englewood is probably going to get some traction by then. I would stay tuned. I watch that area. What else? 3 years from now. I would watch, you know, all these emerging areas that are near the expressway or that have been beaten down. You know, anything near transportation. I would also, actually, I watch areas like Pullman, because David Doig, a friend of mine, he's done a lot of developing. They've got some more commercial coming in with thousands of jobs coming in. I'd like to say Bronzeville a little bit more, because I know that when they redevelop Michael Reese, that's gonna bring in 10,000 jobs. The problem is that's a 10-year project, so that's gonna really give that area a shot in the arm with all the jobs. So I would probably say safely those areas, you'll see some really good traction.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for coming out. Give Frank another big round of applause.